Namaskaram to all and a very good morning. We will start. Chaturmukha Samarambham Vagbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam Ragadirogan Sadata Anushaktan Sheshakaya Prasrutan Sheshan Avulsukya Moha Aradidan Jaghana Yogurva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. We were discussing various aspects of that Ashraya relation and how it can be connected to the better understanding of Samprapti in general and in particular. And we saw that when we look at the Samanya Samprapti, as it is explained in the very fundamental level, I'm not talking about the Nidanasthana or any particular Samprapti, but a Samprapti in general, which is that dosha dushta rasair dhadun dushayanti ubhaye malan adhodve sapta shirasi ghani swedavahani cha malaha malayanani suryadhaswam teshvado gadaha. So when we look at this Samanya Samprapti, I have mentioned this many times earlier, and I would like to repeat it multiple times again and again in our later sessions, because this is one of the key ideas in the understanding of Samprapti. So here we find dosha dushta rasaihi dhadun dushayanti, and we saw that there is a particular sequence in this description. Rasaihi dushtaha doshaha dhadun dushayanti. Rasaihi dushtaha doshaha dhadun dushayanti. So first, the presence of shadrasas. We already saw that the shadrasas here represent the whole spectrum of nimitta karanas. So first, there is a presence of nimitta karana. Then second, the dushti of doshas. And third, the dushti of dhatus. And we find a sequence, Nidanam, Dosham, Dushyam. We try to explain what could be the reason by considering various aspects of Sharira and its association, relation with Panchabhuta. We have tried to explain why this could be like this. This is an accepted Siddhanta. That means dosha dushta rasaihi dhadun dushayanti. In the textbooks, we find many statements in this regard. One of the most celebrated statement in this regard could be that one which we find with the Prameha Nidanam of Charaka Samhita. What is that? Iha ghalu Nidana dosha dushya visheshebhyo vikara vikhata bhava bhava pradivisheshaha bhavanti. So that sequence is very well established. Iha ghalu Nidana dosha dushya visheshebhyo. And then we find it explained further that yada hyedetrayo nidanadi visheshaha parasparam nanubadhanandi adhava kalaprakarshad abaliyam saha adhava anubadhanandi na tada vigarabhinirvrittihi chiradva api abhinirvartade chiradva api abhinirvartande tanavo va bhavanti ayadhokta sarvalinga va viparye viparitaha. So there we find how this sequence is important. Edetrayah nidana dosha dushya visheshaha parasparam. And we explained it because it is actually the difference could be, see, when the nidanas come into sort of a contact, an encounter between sharira and nidana. And there is some sort of an influencing. We can explain it in multiple formats. That means the nidana influences the sharira. That is one way of understanding it. So there is the Shakti Vishesha of Nidana. Sharira responds to Nidana. So it is a response from the Sharira. Both are relevant. Both are important. However strong the Nidana is, if the Sharira is not ending up in a sort of a response which is destructive, practically what happens? There is no samyoga, there is no yoga, there is no attachment of the yoga and the dosha. There is attachment of attachment of nidana and dosha. There may be attachment of nidana and sharira, but as long as the doshas are not responding by some factor or the other, there is no contact between nidana and the dosha. Parasparam na anubadhanandi. Parasparam na anubadhanandi. Then there is no possibility of the samprapti progressing further to the next levels. Or even no samprapti is initiated. So this passage in Charaka Samhita tells us that any Nijaroga has a peculiar sequence identified in its samprapti, in the course of manifestation of that Nijaroga. In Aganduroga, the picture may be different. Aganduroga, picture may be different. But in any Nijaroga, in the course of its manifestation from 0 to X, there is a sequence. Dosha dushta rasair dushayandi ubhaye malan. Then further, I have not yet touched the part of mala or the srotas and all those things. I am just considering by dushya, I take all those remaining factors. So nidana, dosha, dushya. So that is the highlight of this statement, this passage. Yada hede trayo nidana divisheshaha na parasparam anubadhanandi. Of this statement, this is the crux of the story. But we started from Ashraya-Ashraya relationship. So one point is to be highlighted here. Our discussion started from yadegasya tadanyasya vardhanakshapanaushadham. And we were trying from the perspective of aushadham, whether this can be translated to the very onset of vyadhi itself, very initiation of a samprapti itself, taking some cues from the explanation of Ashraya-Ashraya relationship. So one point is to be highlighted here. I'm sure, 100% sure that at one point of studying these chapters or these points, everyone, each serious student definitely for sure has gone through one confusion. Why this Ashraya-Ashri relationship is explained? Because in a passing mood, Acharya explains all of a sudden that tatrasthi nisthido vayu pittam tu sveda raktayo sleshma shesheshu tenesham ashrayashrayinam mithaha yadegasya tadanyasya vardhanakshapanaushadham. And many things we find which are very important, but we never understand the importance. And that later we find that pakvashe kadi sakthi srotrasthis person indriyam sthanam vadasya. Or when we come to the specific dosha, upadosha or dosha visheshas, or that dosha vikalpas, we find that pranotra murdhagaha or urasthanam udanasya. So which is the right understanding? And what is the relevance of this Ashraya-Ashri relationship? Does it explain the sthana vishesha? Then what is the meaning of, say, for example, taking vayu? Tatra asthi nisthido vayu, then pakvashayam is supposed to be the vishesha sthana of vayu, not asthi. Then at one point we consider prana as the topmost priority and it's seated in the murdha. So asthi, pakvashaya or murdha. Same is the case with pitta, same is the case with kabha. So what is the meaning? So we need to explore deeper and deeper into the very idea of dosha. What is the intention of Acharya or Acharyas in explaining or bringing forth a concept called dosha? So, going back to our context, see, we find the yada hede trayo nidanadi visheshaha parasparam nanubadhanandi na tada vigara abhinirvrittihi. So one point is to be highlighted here. In the sequence of manifestation of a vigara, nija vigara specifically, nidana, dosha, dushya, the dosha or doshas in a particular yoga need not follow the ashraya-ashrayi relation in the next level. That means in the interaction with the dushya. It can happen, but not mandatory. What I mean is, do not think that, or we all know that, I'm just brushing up. Vayu will be engaging with asthi always and mandatorily in any samprapti. Pitta will engage with rakta always mandatorily in any samprapti. Kabha will engage with rasa, mamsa, medas, majja, shukram always mandatorily in any samprapti. That can happen, but it is not mandatory. So again, that makes the very purpose of this explanation further vague. Then why this ashraya-ashri relation? We have explained it in many possibilities, highlighting the original fingerprint of the bhautik fingerprint of the bhutas, the bhautik fingerprint of each dhadu, and how they can be related with one another. So, in a samprapti, we cannot expect the doshas to confine themselves to their ashraya sthanas, even though it can be one of the most common possibilities that exists. But we cannot expect it as the one and only possibility that a dosha will always be confined to its ashraya in the process of a samprapti. And that is why otherwise things could have been much, much easier in understanding level, definitely not in the level of intervention. And that is why we have to understand the Samprapti seriously, deeply, in general, and in particular with each individual Vikara-avastha or Vyadhyavastha. So, Ashraya-Ashrayi relationship gave us some sort of an offer. What is that offer? An aushadha which increases the ashraya will increase the ashrayi as well. This is a clue. In solving a big problem, you can touch this first clue. See, this can be considered as a strategy to some vikara in this line. An aushadha which is increasing the ashraya tends to increase the ashrayi as well. Similarly, an aushadha which decreases the ashraya will decrease the ashrayi as well. So this is some sort of a foundation or an indicator statement for a baseline or highly generalized or pradhamika or elementary approach towards all treatments. But definitely the samprapti vishesha, that means the samprapti of an individual roga is a different event. And that is what we are trying to explore again and again. Now, a dosha which has departed from its normal state, samavastha, under the influence of a nidana, a dosha, let it be vada, pitta or kapha, which has derailed from the normal state, departed from its samavastha. Why? Under the influence of a nidana. This has the potential to derail a dushya. As I mentioned earlier, in the subheading of dushya, we can accommodate many things. It is dhadu, it is mala, it is srotas, all those things. I'm using the word dushya because each component is to be understood in detail. What is srotas? That is very detailed description. And because at one point in a general samprapti, we find yadhaswam teshwado gadaha. So it looks to be a super high generalization, not even a simple generalization. So a derailed dosha has the potential to derail a dushya, to afflict a dushya. It is a potency, but need not happen always, need not happen all of a sudden, need not happen in full swing. And this results in the manifestation of a roga. Invariably sometimes, suddenly sometimes, delayed sometimes, with incomplete presentations sometimes. And this departure of a dosha from its samavastha under the influence of a nidana is what we call as dosha dushti in general. And in one of our earlier sessions, not in one, but in many sessions, we saw that this dushti can be of various types. This dushti can be of various types. We can just remember about Hemadri at this point. Hemadri is trying to bring specificity to this statement. What was his observation? Rupa hanirva, Rupa vruddhirva, Rupandaram va ityadi dushtatva prakaraha. Sarva roga nidanam samprapti. Rupa hanirva, Rupa vruddhirva, Rupandaram va ityadi dushtatva prakaraha. Rupa hani is indicative of kshayam. Rupa vruddhi is of vruddhi. And Rupandaram indicating any state without or other than kshayam or vruddhi, wherein a dosha behaves abnormally, manifests abnormally, but neither kshayam nor vruddhi. I am not going to distract myself to those ideas at this point, because that is again a long discussion. We will consider kshayam. That is rupa hani. Here, rupa hani is kshayam, and kshayam invariably reflects dosha kshayam. The question is, how does it happen? This is an important question. How does it happen? When somebody is asking this question, it is actually a testing time for any Vaidya. Because that shakes the Vaidya's conviction about the very idea of dosha itself. We have tried to explain doshas in multiple levels earlier. But as and when we read more about dosha with a purely clinical perspective, in our day-to-day clinical practice, while understanding a vikara, while understanding a rogi, while understanding or trying to make out the best prescription, again and again we have to revise the idea of dosha. Dosha kshayam is very serious. Dosha vriddhi is very serious. So at one point, when we start explaining about dosha kshayam, there is a random question popping up. How does it happen? So it's an important question. We have seen that multiple times, or we are informed that the loka is panjabhautika and so is purusha. I'm really sorry if I'm bringing some ideas which we have discussed earlier again and again. Actually, this is an abhyasa, avartano abhyasa. So we will have to do many things repeatedly, then only the idea will be clearly positioned. So, loka is panjabhautika and so is purusha. The panjabhautika loka provides nourishment to the panjabhautika purusha. So ahara is the fundamental link connecting the loka and purusha. Ahara is the fundamental connecting link. In Charaka Samhita, we can find some sort of a categorical statements in this regard. Take the 28th chapter of the Sutra Sthanam, you will find many chapters. What is that? Evam idam shariram asita pita लीढखादितप्रभवम् एवमिदं शरीरम् अशिद पीत लीढ खादितप्रभवम्. There is no doubt in that statement. So, ahara is the connecting link between the bhautika loka and the bhautika purusha. Ahara, I'm just making some sort of a twisting in the statements, making some sort of a math, like making the mathematical equations. Ahara nourishes shariram. Shariram is doshadhadu mala sanchayam. Doshadhadu mala moolam sada dehasya. It is a pradijna which we cannot violate at any point. That will be a nigrahasthanam. So ahara nourishes shariram. Shariram is doshadhadu mala sanchayam. So what is the derived formula from it, equation from it? Ahara nourishes doshadhadu mala sanchayam. So poshanam happens to the doshadhadu mala moola shariram. Ahara nourishes doshadhadu mala sanchayam. But when we search our literature, we find the usage dhadu poshanam very often. Dhadu poshanam. But what about dosha poshanam? What about mala poshanam? They are not commonly seen phrases. Dhadu poshanam we find in poshya dhadu, poshaga dhadu, dhadu poshana nyayam, khale kapodam, kedara kulya, kshiradadhi. These are all related to a very core concept called dhadu poshanam. But hardly we find any dosha poshanam. Forget about that pajanam and that one point kabha is predominant, pitta is predominant. That is a different stuff. It has nothing to do with dosha poshanam. Or we don't find mala poshanam. We don't find any poshya dosham, poshaga dosham. Please mute the mic. Some mic is making a lot of sound. Please mute it. So on the contrarily, we can meet with dosha kshayam, dosha vruddhi, and dosha samyam, or mala vruddhi, mala kshayam, mala samyam. But we do not find dosha poshanam or mala poshanam. So that is again making us think. When we say that ahara is poshanam for shariram, shariram is doshadhadu mala moolam, we have to think it again and again, because we don't find dosha poshanam or mala poshanam as done by ahara. So which is the original link in sharira that connects it with the panchabhautika loka, which can be, it is dhatu. We find this clearly stated, unambiguously stated in many situations. If you take the same chapter of Charaka Samhita Sutrasthanam, that is 28, Vividham Asidam Pidam Leedham Khadidam Jendoho Hitam Andaragni Sandhukshida Balena Yadhasvena Ushmana Samyag Vipachyamanam. Kalavad Anavasthita Sarvadhadupagam Anupahata Sarvadhadu Ushmamaruda Srodaha Kevalam Shariram Upachaya Balavarna Sukhayusha Yojayadi Sharira Dhadun Urjayadi Cha Vividham Ashitam Pidam Leadam Khadidam Sharira Dhadun Urjayadi. We do not find Sharira Doshan Urjayadi, Sharira Malan Urjayadi. That is discussed in that Malarupam and Sararupam, all those things will be coming further to this. So, even though the Poshanam is for Sharira, the right Poshanam is intended to Dhadus in the Dosha Dhadu Mala Sanchaya Rupa Sharira. This is very important for understanding what dosha is. Again, in a different shade, in a different hue, we have explained what dosha is. But to understand what dosha vruddhi is, understand what dosha kshaya is, we have to explore again and again. Because without understanding or making different levels of different perspectives of the idea of dosha, we cannot move independently through the proper understanding of vikaras, roga, or samprapti as such. So we will be exploring this idea again and again. Today, as it is already crossed the time, we will be stopping. So I have a request. See, please read some chapters again and again. I would suggest this Doshadi Vijnaniyam, say first Dravyadi Vijnaniyam, Doshadi Vijnaniyam, Doshabheviyam, Doshobhakramaniyam, Dvidhobhakramaniyam. Uninterruptedly read, or listen. If you are a clinician, before going to your OPD, read at least one of these chapters every day. Then I think we will have to think about what this dosha is, what this dosha kshaya is, what this samprapti is. So I think I heard that tomorrow is Charaga Jayanti. I do not know what it is exactly, whether that is the date of birth of Charaga or not. It is a different question. But how, some way or the other, we are celebrating Charaga Jayanti. So maybe I think as a break point, we can start reading these chapters tomorrow onwards, at least if not today. So that I think the understanding of this dosha or dosha dhadu malamulam sada dehasya will be becoming more and more clear. Thank you very much. I stop at this point today. Bhishajam sadhu vrittanam bhadram agamasalinam abhyasta karmanam bhadram bhadram bhadrabhilashinam. Thank you very much.